At 76, Ozzy Osbourne breaks and Nylance on the night that almost ended Black Sabbath. One wild night in Albuquerque nearly tore Black Sabbath apart. Ozzy Osbourne, drunk and high, climbed onto the roof of a 1,000-foot-high cable car, singing into the darkness. He remembered nothing the next day. Now, after decades of silence, Ozzy reveals the truth behind the chaos, and how it almost ended the band forever. Chapter 1. Did Ozzy really climb that cable? It was a moment that felt like a scene from a surreal nightmare. Somewhere high above Albuquerque, New Mexico, Ozzy Osbourne climbed onto the roof of a 1,000-foot-high cable car, standing unprotected over a vast canyon, singing Black Sabbath songs into the night. He was drunk, he was high, and he had no memory of it the next morning. In his own words, Ozzy later admitted, "I had no memory the next day." The sheer physical danger of that moment can't be overstated. That cable car wasn't just a sightseeing ride. It hovered hundreds of feet in the air, swaying above jagged cliffs, with nothing but a thin roof between Ozzy and a deadly fall. There were no safety rails, no harness, no crew pulling him back. Just Ozzy's intoxicated thrill-seeking pushing him to a place few would dare go. He wasn't performing for an audience. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He was simply lost in the chaos of his own making, singing into the void, unaware that the void could have swallowed him whole. This wasn't an isolated act of recklessness. It was a symptom of something much deeper. The 1970s were a turbulent decade for Black Sabbath. The band was caught in the whirlwind of fame, relentless touring, and an endless supply of drugs and alcohol. The rockstar lifestyle wasn't just a cliche, it was a dangerous reality spiraling out of control. Tony Iommi, in his memoir Iron Man, described the state of the band at the time. There were so many drugs flying around, we couldn't relate to each other anymore. Everyone was battling their own demons, but for Ozzy, the line between self-destruction and survival was growing thinner by the day. This wild stunt in Albuquerque wasn't a funny story, it was a flashing red warning light. Inside the band, tension was building. Ozzy's behavior was becoming unpredictable. His absence from rehearsals, his missed cues, his inability to stay sober for performances, it all pointed toward an inevitable breaking point. The cable car incident symbolized just how far he had drifted from reality, and how dangerously close he was to pulling the whole band down with him. Yet somehow, this wasn't Ozzy's first brush with outrageous stunts. Years earlier, at a CBS Records meeting, he shocked executives by pulling out a white dove and biting its head off in the middle of the room. It wasn't planned. It was pure Ozzy, chaotic, impulsive, and unforgettable. That dove stunt made headlines around the world, cementing his reputation as rock's most unpredictable madman. But as wild as the cable car story was, it wasn't the last time Ozzy's antics would threaten to derail Black Sabbath's journey. But that cable car night wasn't the only time Ozzy's wild side threatened to derail everything. And soon, the consequences would catch up with him. A lot of research went into telling this story. If you liked it, subscribe so I can keep sharing more with you. Chapter 2. Why Black Sabbath had to fire him April 27, 1979, a date that would become one of the most pivotal moments in rock history. After 10 years of groundbreaking music, relentless touring, and chaotic excess, the original members of Black Sabbath made an unthinkable decision. Ozzy Osbourne had to go. It wasn't a decision they made lightly, but it was one they felt they had to make. And when the moment came, drummer Bill Ward, the most compassionate, soft-spoken member of the group, was chosen to deliver the news to his longtime friend and frontman. Ozzy later recalled the moment in his autobiography, I Am Ozzy. Tony thought I was a pissed, coked-up loser and a waste of time. The words cut deep, but in his heart, Ozzy knew they weren't entirely wrong. Years of missed rehearsals, unpredictable behavior, and a deepening dependence on drugs and alcohol had made working with him nearly impossible. Recording sessions dragged on endlessly, live shows became unreliable, the very future of the band was hanging by a thread. Tony Iommi, in his memoir Iron Man, shared his perspective on the painful choice. Somebody had to make a move. Otherwise, we'd still be there now and we'd all be out of it. There was no dramatic showdown, no explosive argument, just a quiet, heartbreaking acknowledgement that the band couldn't go on like this. And so, after a decade together, they let go of their frontman, the man whose voice had defined their sound, whose wild spirit had both inspired and endangered them. The Prince of Darkness was out. For Ozzy, the impact was immediate and devastating. Cut off from the band that had been his life, he spiraled deeper into despair. Isolated in his apartment, surrounded by empty bottles and discarded drug paraphernalia, he felt the walls closing in. He later admitted, "I sat alone in my apartment for 3 months, drinking and doing drugs, thinking it was over. Everything he had built, gone in an instant. No band, no direction, no reason to believe he had a future in music." Meanwhile, Black Sabbath pressed forward, hiring Ronnie James Dio and crafting what would become the critically acclaimed Heaven and Hell album. Ozzy Left Behind seemed destined to fade into rock history as a tragic cautionary tale. But fate wasn't finished with him yet. In the depths of that darkness, a spark appeared. It was during this lost, wandering period that Ozzy met a young, electrifying guitarist named Randy Rhoads. Their connection was instant, their chemistry undeniable, and together they began to create something no one could have predicted, a sound that would not only resurrect Ozzy's career but elevate him to new heights. What had seemed like the end was in truth a beginning. From the ashes of that firing, from the lowest, most broken moment of his life, Ozzy Osbourne would rise again, and what followed would eclipse even the glory days of Black Sabbath. But from the ashes of that firing, Ozzy would rise again into something even bigger than Sabbath had imagined. Chapter 3: How Ozzy Survived Near Death Twice. Ozzy Osbourne's journey hasn't just been defined by music, madness, and metal. It's been marked by survival, a relentless fight against odds that would have broken anyone else. In 2003, that fight took a terrifying turn. While riding a quad bike on his English estate, Ozzy lost control, crashing violently. The accident shattered multiple ribs, fractured a vertebra in his neck, and broke his collarbone. He was left unconscious and critically injured. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, where he was placed on a ventilator and underwent emergency surgery. Doctors later admitted the brutal truth: the injuries could have easily killed him, but Ozzy did what he'd always done. He survived. Fast forward to 2019, and another devastating blow struck, this time from within. After months of unexplained health struggles, Ozzy was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder. At first, he kept the diagnosis private, but in early 2020, he shared the difficult news publicly. Speaking candidly, he admitted, "I've got a mild form of Parkinson's. It's not the end yet Parkinson's was only the start of an avalanche of health challenges. Over the next few years, Ozzy battled nerve pain, blood clots, and 4 major spinal surgeries in a desperate attempt to stabilize his condition. In 2019, a fall in his home dislodged the metal rods from his earlier recovery, forcing yet another invasive operation. Every step forward seemed followed by 2 steps back. Frustrated, exhausted, and in constant pain, Ozzy described his daily battle. "Whatever I plan gets changed. I walked upstairs today for the first time in a while, and my feet feel like I've got diving boots on." The physical toll was unrelenting, but it wasn't just his body that suffered. Ozzy faced crippling depression and anxiety, haunted by the loss of his strength and freedom. Once famous for wild stage antics, he now struggled just to stand without help. Reflecting on the slow decline, he shared, "You wake up the next morning and find something else has gone wrong. You begin to think this is never going to end. But through it all, one person refused to let him give up: Sharon Osbourne. His wife, manager, and fiercest supporter, Sharon became his anchor. Determined to give Ozzy a reason to keep fighting, she devised a bold plan: a final Black Sabbath reunion concert. It wasn't just another farewell show. It was a mission, a lifeline, a reason to get up, to move forward, to prove he could still stand tall, even if only for one night. Ozzy credited her for reigniting his spirit. "It's something to give me a reason to get up in the morning." And so, despite the surgeries, the setbacks, the pain, Ozzy set his sights on the stage one more time. But how could a man who could barely walk return to the stage for one last show? Chapter 4: Will this be their final show? On July 5th, 2025, something historic will unfold in the heart of Birmingham. After more than 2 decades apart, the original lineup of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, will reunite for one final show. The venue couldn't be more fitting: Villa Park, their hometown stadium, standing just miles from where the band first formed in 1968. It's more than a concert, it's a homecoming, a farewell, a celebration of the music that birthed heavy metal itself. But Black Sabbath won't be alone that night. Sharing the stage will be an all-star lineup of metal giants: Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Gojira, Hailstorm, Alice in Chains, Lamb of God, Anthrax, and Mastodon. And if that wasn't enough, a supergroup of rock legends will join forces for a once-in-a-lifetime jam. Slash, Billy Corgan, Jonathan Davis, Fred Durst, Wolfgang Van Halen, and Tom Morello. The scale of the event is unprecedented. A festival built around a band's farewell, a gathering gathering of generations who owe their sound to Sabbath's influence. But for Ozzy, the return to the stage comes with limitations. His health no longer allows for a full set. Instead, he's embracing what he can give, not what he can't. Speaking candidly, Ozzy explained, "We're only playing a couple of songs each. It's a sample. You're going to get a few songs each by Ozzy and Sabbath. There won't be long, sweaty encores. There won't be wild stage runs or chaotic leaps into the crowd, but there will be presence. Ozzy standing with his brothers one last time, delivering the music that defined their lives." And in true Ozzy fashion, there's even talk of a dramatic twist. Longtime collaborator Zakk Wylde teased a playful, over-the-top idea for the show, with Oz and his throne flying over the stadium, shooting buckets of water. Whether it's a literal flying throne or just the legend of it, the spirit of spectacle remains alive. Beyond the music, the concert carries deeper meaning. Proceeds from the show will support Cure Parkinson's, Birmingham Children's Hospital, and Acorn Children's Hospice, charities that reflect both Ozzy's personal battles and his gratitude to his hometown. For Ozzy, the moment is about more than just music. It's about coming full circle. In a statement reflecting on the significance of the event, he declared, "It's my time to go back to the beginning. Birmingham is the true home of metal. Birmingham forever." But for Ozzy, this is more than a show. It's the closing of a circle, the healing of old wounds, and the final roar of a metal pioneer. Chapter 5. Is this Ozzy's last goodbye? Ozzy Osbourne's place in the history of heavy metal is undisputed. Known around the world as the Prince of Darkness, he built a persona rooted in chaos, spectacle, and controversy. Yet behind the bat-biting headlines and outrageous stunts lies a deeper truth. Ozzy is more than a wild card. He's a pioneer, a survivor, and one of music's most enduring icons. When Black Sabbath fired him in 1979, few expected him to rise again. But what followed wasn't just a comeback, it was a reinvention. With the help of legendary guitarist Randy Rhoads, Ozzy launched a solo career that eclipsed even his work with Sabbath. Albums like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman became instant classics, blending haunting melodies with electrifying guitar work. These records didn't just keep him afloat, they catapulted him into solo superstardom, proving that Ozzy's voice and vision were powerful enough to stand alone. And yet, the bond with Black Sabbath never truly broke. Across the decades, fate kept pulling them back together. There was the 1997 reunion, a moment that healed old wounds and brought fans back to where it all began. Then came 2013's 13th album, their first full-length record together in decades, followed by a global farewell tour in 2017. Now, with Back to the Beginning, the story comes full circle. One last performance, back in their hometown, together again. But beyond the records and tours, Ozzy's greatest evolution might be the one fans didn't see coming: his personal growth. After years of substance abuse, legal troubles, and public scandals, he slowly carved a path toward sobriety. He focused on his family, he faced his regrets head on, and yet he never lost the playful defiance that made him unforgettable. As he once famously put it, "I'm not the devil. I just like making people think I am." That blend of humor, rebellion, and self-awareness endeared him to fans across generations. His music may have started in the 1970s, but his influence stretches far beyond. Today, you'll find teenagers discovering Paranoid on streaming playlists alongside lifelong fans who saw him in smoky clubs 5 decades ago. The bittersweet reality, though, is that time spares no one. Ozzy's body has grown frail, his health battles are public, his stage moves are now measured and careful, but his voice, his legacy, they endure. Speaking candidly about his upcoming performance, he offered a simple, humble reflection. "I'll be there, and I'll do the best I can. All I can do is turn up." And maybe that's the truest mark of a legend. Not perfection, but perseverance. Not invincibility, but the will to keep showing up again and again, no matter the odds. At 76, Ozzy Osbourne may be taking his final bow, but his echo will ring forever in the halls of metal. You've heard the chaos, but there's still so much left beneath the surface. Click the video on your screen and keep uncovering the hidden moments, the unseen decisions, the secrets that shaped everything. Don't stop now, the next chapter is waiting. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story.